Welcome to Earth Science. I am Mrs. Tratner, and this lesson will be discussing observing the solar system. In our previous lesson, we talked about the different planets, the inner and the outer planets, and some of their characteristics. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at some additional information and a little bit of a historic view of the solar system. So these are the objectives that we're covering in the unit. These are the goals for today. Understand the history of how the universe was modeled and understand the scale of the universe. We will go through several review questions prior to class, or prior to the lesson. So if you wanted to review these ahead of time, you can. Okay, so our solar system. If we look back historically, okay, when the Greeks were observing the solar system, they looked at it as what they called the planets were the wanderers. They could see celestial bodies moving, depending on the time of year. They would move, okay, and so they named them planets, which meant wanderers. The Greeks believed that the universe was perfect, that it was this celestial sphere, kind of like the model that we see here on the slide. And it was a geocentric system. Okay, remember, we're not talking about that they have all of this advanced technology. So most of what they're putting down is what they can see and what they can observe. It was also believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. Okay, and the other planets and the sun revolved around the Earth. Then we have Ptolemy, and this occurred in about AD 140. He still believed, and others still believed, that the Earth was at the center and that the planets moved in circles. Okay, this theory lasted almost 1,500 years. It wasn't until Copernicus's time, when we're talking about almost the time of the telescope. And Copernicus developed this theory that the sun was at the center, okay, and he did this based on observations that he was making and mathematical calculations that he was also making. And he came up with this theory in 1543. They thought he was crazy. Okay, they did not, for 1,500 years, the Earth was the center of the universe and everything moved in circles. Okay, and Copernicus was throwing all of this out, saying, no, wait a second. The sun is the center. And yes, things still move in a circular pattern, but the Earth really isn't the center. Okay, and then it wasn't until Galileo developed the telescope in 1610 that this theory was actually given credit, that the sun was the center of the universe. And then from there, we know that then the orbits of the planets were much more elliptical rather than circular. Okay, Tycho Brahe was really the one in the 1500s. He didn't use a telescope, but he was able to observe and record the locations of the planets and the positions of them. And then in the 1600s, right after the telescope was discovered, Kepler was the one who developed the theory that the planets moved in a elliptical pattern rather than in a circular pattern. So what we're going to do in class is we are going to build a scale model of the universe, and we're going to create a scale model. And I'm going to give you guys a website to use. Okay, so you'll need some string, some paper, folders, things like to make the planets out of. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a scale model of it. And we're going to start with the sun. And we are going to calculate using the actual diameter of the sun, and then we're going to create a scale object of the sun, and we're going to use a website to do that. Okay, and then we're also going to look at the radius, which is only half of, remember that's only half the distance of a circle, right, from the center to the outer edge. Look at the orbital radius of the different planets. So we're going to create a scale model using paper, index cards, old folders of each of the planets and the sun. And then we're also going to calculate the orbital radius from the sun to that planet. And we're going to start working on that in class. And again, I have a website that will help us with that. And it will be fantastic. And then that'll be something that you submit to me.